Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Brian Cain, your peak performance and mental conditioning coach. And thank you so very much for joining me here on this softball 4-RIP3 mental conditioning webinar. Now, we're live, and I know that for some people this may be the first webinar you've ever done. And I just want to take a minute here and kind of walk you through how this works. So if you are on the Google page, and you can see where there's a section where you can ask questions. So for example, we have a question that talks about how to get parents to buy in to being more of a team member and less of an individual. So we have some questions coming in. Okay, well, my apologies there. We had some technical difficulties. Again, anytime you go online, sometimes computers help you, sometimes they hurt you. So my apologies for that, but let's get right into it. Now, I'm assuming if you're here, again, you're either on the Google page or you're watching us on YouTube, so let's continue. Now, when we're talking about the mental game of softball, the first thing I want you to understand is that conditioning mentally for softball is just like you condition physically. If you want to become a better hitter, you go to the batting cage. If you want to become a better pitcher, you go to the bullpen. If you want to become stronger, you go to the weight room. Well, what do you do to become more mentally tough in softball? Well, today, I want to give you some strategies to become more mentally tough in softball, because I think sometimes it's a concept that people think you're either born mentally tough or you're not. And it's really not that way. You see, mental toughness is conditioned. It's trained just like the physical skills of your sport. Now, the best way to train, and if you're taking notes, hopefully you've got your notepad and got your pencil handy or your pen handy. Please write down this statement: do a little a lot, not a lot a little. Do a little a lot, not a lot a little. That's the best way to train yourself mentally. Now, that being the case, I came up with a program that I want to share with you. It's called the Daily Dominator. And what the Daily Dominator is it's a 1-page-a-day read. So for example, if we scroll like I'm on a computer, if we flip to January 18th, right? Today is talking about staying positive. Tomorrow talks about your mental assassins. And what this book does for you is it gives you 1 page a day to read, or to photocopy and stick on a cork board in your dugout or in the locker room, and it gets everyone on the same page about reading a concept that has to deal with mental toughness. You then apply that to your program specifically. So the way the top college and high school programs I work with in the country use the Daily Dominator is that pre-practice, the routine is everyone has read the page, and then when they come in, it's the first thing they talk about. Now, another key concept for you to write down is get comfortable being uncomfortable. And one of the things that we know that's probably the most feared thing on the planet is public speaking. And what we want our athletes to do is get comfortable being uncomfortable. So we always call on one player in our group meeting before practice and have them address and talk about that day's Daily Dominator message and how it relates to what we're trying to accomplish in our softball program. So it's a great way to do a little a lot and have some things to go to every day. Now, let's talk about performance improvement in softball. And one of my mentors, a guy named Harvey Dorfman, who you may have heard of as a guru of the mental game of baseball, he wrote the book, The Mental Game of Baseball. He worked for Scott Boras and worked with all the great Major League Baseball players, and he unfortunately passed away in 2010. But I got a chance to get with Harvey, and I asked him the $1 million question. And here's the $1 million question. Please write this down. What do you know now you wish you knew then? What do you know now you wish you knew then? And when I asked Harvey that $1 million question, and actually the entire interview is captured in my book, So What Next Pitch, which you can get at my cost now on the briancain.com/softball-webinar page. We're trying to liquidate these books because I am moving and I need to get them out of my basement. And when I talked to Harvey, he said, you know, Brian, the thing I know now is that it really only takes 3 steps for performance enhancement. 3 steps. Step number 1 is to have awareness. Step number 2 is to have a strategy. And step number 3 is to put the strategy into action. So again, let's review the 3 steps to performance enhancement taught by Harvey Dorfman and featured the entire interview in this book, So What Next Pitch. Number 1, awareness. Number 2, strategy. Number 3, put that strategy into action. So if you're a coach, or you're an athlete, or you're a parent watching this, here's how we develop awareness. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you now compared to where you want to be? 10 is I'm exactly where I want to be. If I'm a head coach, ask this yourself about your program. If you're a player, ask it about your performance. If you're a parent, ask it about your daughter's performance. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10, this is where I want to be. 1, this is as far away from where I want to be as possible. Where are you at? Let's say you gave yourself a 6. Let's say you gave yourself an 8. You gave yourself a 2. You gave yourself a 9. That doesn't matter. That's to increase awareness. Now you know where you're at. I should say it doesn't matter in terms of where we go with our next step. So if you gave yourself a 2 or you gave yourself an 8, here's the next question you have to ask yourself. What's one thing I can start doing to help me move from a 2 or from a 6 towards a 10? What's one thing I can start doing? And when you identify what the one thing is for you to start doing, what you do is you now give yourself an opportunity to create those strategies. What's the one thing you're going to start doing? And then ask yourself, what's the one thing I have to stop doing? And then ask yourself, what's the one thing I'm going to continue doing? So right now, let's take just 1 minute and have you create awareness. Where are you at on a scale of 1 to 10? And then let's create strategies. Create one thing you're going to start, stop, and continue. So go ahead and write those down. Moving forward, you're going to give you 1 minute as I check in with my IT team here, who's also on this call to make sure that everything's going good on their end. So again, we reviewed the 3 steps to performance enhancement: awareness, strategy, action. Now, as a coach, as a consultant, when I go in to work with some of the top college programs in the country, whether it's Georgia, Alabama, Florida State, Mississippi State, UAB, Arizona State, whoever it is, when I have my individual meetings with the staff and then my meetings with the players, I always start that way. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are we at compared to where we want to be, to identify what the gap is, and then we get to work to close that gap by creating strategies: start, stop, and continue. Now, as a coach, I'm going to share with you 2 strategies that you can use to enhance practice, to make practice better and increase the attention of your athletes. Number 1 is to use what's called callbacks. And what a callback is where you would say something and you get the athletes to repeat. So it moves from a monologue where one person is talking to a dialogue where you as the teacher are speaking and then they respond. And you speak and you respond. So it looked like this. Here's the coach. Coach says, all right, today at practice, let's make sure we get after it today. Focus on the next what? And the athletes would say the next 200 feet, if you're familiar with our terminology. Or you would say, all right, today I want to make, let's make sure that we sprint on and off the field all day. What's one of our key focuses for today? And the athletes would say, sprint on and off the field. So what it does, or if you said, today we don't count the days, we do what? And they'd say, make the days count. It's a way to use a callback as you teach. They then respond back to you, and it increases learners' retention. Imagine if you had a stopwatch on your iPhone, and as you speak to the team, what happens is you start the watch, and it counts. And as it goes for 45 seconds, you haven't had them raise a hand. If you haven't had them use a callback, write something down, after 45 seconds, you lose their attention. So every 45 seconds, you want to be going through that. And imagine every time you use a callback, the watch goes back to 0. So callbacks are critical. Here's another key part for you to use. It's called the 30-second drill. And what the 30-second drill is as you're coaching, you ask your audience for 30 seconds of totally undivided attention, have them stand at attention, or have them sit up straight, just like I want you to do right now. So sit up straight in your chair if you're watching this, and give me 30 seconds of totally undivided attention. Lock in your eyes and ears here, and let's invest time, not spend time, for 30 seconds. Ready, set, go. For a short period of time, you can do anything you want with your levels of attention, energy, and focus. Right now, the focus on this call is different than it was just 10 seconds ago. Feel that. This is exactly where you want to be and exactly where you want to get your athletes when they're working with you as a coach. This is called the present moment. This is where one pitch at a time happens. So train them by asking them for 30 seconds. And what I want you to do is I want you to start asking me questions through this Google Hangout, through this webinar. That's 30 seconds, space out. Now, how you ask questions is if you put your cursor here up on the left, you'll see where it says Q&A, and you can ask a question. So we've had some questions coming in here. about how to get parents to buy in, and what are some things athletes can do to regain their composure after something bad happens. Well, let's talk a little bit about getting people to buy in. You see, there's 4 stages to buy in. Whether it's parents, whether it's you as a coach buying into the mental game, whether it's getting your players to buy in, there's 4 stages of buy-in when it comes to the mental game of softball. And these are all featured in my book in 2 DVD program called Coaching the Mental Game of Softball. And again, if you go to my page, briancain.com/softball-webinar, which we'll send out again after this call, you can get my entire program. It's a 4-hour live seminar. It comes on 2 DVDs, 2 CDs, so you can listen to it in the car, and talks about the mental game of softball specific. Now, in that program, we talk about 4 stages of buy-in or 4 stages of acceptance. Number 1, people come in and say, mental game, this ain't for me. That's where I was when I was a college athlete. Stage 1, mental game ain't for me. Stage 2, it might be okay for others. Stage 3, okay, I'll try it. And then stage 4, I can't believe I did it any other way. So let's review again the 4 stages of buy-in. Number 1, not for me. Number 2, okay for others. Stage 3, I'll try it. In stage 4, I can't believe I did it any other way. So when you're talking about getting buy-in from players or buy-in from coaches or parents, one of the key factors is to show how athletes and softball players at the elite level are using this same program to get a competitive advantage. And if you don't use it, you're going to be behind. If you don't use a mental conditioning program, you're falling behind. I mean, let's be real. Softball is as mental of a game as there is. You succeed 3 out of 10 times, you're an All-American. No other game is there as much pressure, is there as much failure as there is in softball. More failure in softball than baseball. The game is a lot faster. Baseball, you can bobble a ground ball and still throw somebody out. Not in softball. The game's too fast. So let's talk about a system. Because if you're going to be consistent over time, you have to be able to describe what you do as a system. Look at what Nick Saban's doing at Alabama with football. He talks all about the process. Process means system. I can describe what I do step by step. If you look at what Skip Bertman did at LSU in the 90s with 5 national championships in baseball, the system. Well, we have a mental game system, and it's called 4-Rip-3 softball. You see, for you as a coach, the products that you want to get, the training tools you want to get, is coaching the mental game. This will teach you how to coach the mental game, and 4-Rip-3 softball, which comes with 3 CDs, and you get a book for every one of your players. This would be your program that you use on a daily or every other day or a weekly basis. It comes in 10 chapters, talks about our 4-Rip-3 system. Well, let me walk you through our 4-Rip-3 system now. And on the briancain.com/softball-webinar page, there's 3 handouts on the side. So right now I'm going to share with you my screen so you can see those 3 handouts, and then we're going to go over those as we go over our 4-Rip-3 system. So now I'm going to share my screen. And the first thing I want to share with you is you can see what are called concentration grids. And concentration grids, let's see here. So I make sure you can see this. So these are concentration grids. And what concentration grids are is a number training system where to train focus. So the athlete starts off by crossing off 0, 0, and then 0, 1, and then 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, all the way up to 99. Now you can do this in a classroom where they go 0, 0 to 99 or in the locker room. It's probably going to take anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes. How I suggest you use concentration grids to train focus for an extended period of time is as a station in practice. So let's say you're hitting, and you got 4 players hitting in a group, and they're going to get 4 rounds, 5 swings each round. So the player 1 is hitting in the cage. When she comes out, she becomes player 2. Player 2 is on the outside of the cage working and practicing her release. Player 3 is behind the cage, sitting on a bucket with a clipboard, with a concentration grid that's laminated, with a dry erase marker, and is going for probably the minute or so that it's going to take for each round to go through, and she's going as far as she can, 0, 0 to 99. crossing off all those numbers, training her focus to stay in the moment. She's competing with herself and competing with the other members of that group to go as far as they can in that 1 minute. And then she becomes player 4, who's outside the cage again on the left side and is now working her routine. So they come out of the cage, release, concentration grid, and then work the routine, and then get back in the cage and hit. So in that rotation, they are working on hitting, releasing their routine, and the concentration grid. Because what we want to work on is we want to work on what we call net time. And what net time means we have no extra time. Now, let me share another page with you here. It's going to be, again, did you catch that? Net time, N-E-T. No extra time. So we want to build all of our mental game into the physical practice. That's why we read the Daily Dominator, and we talk about that every day, 1 page a day. That's why we have all of our players read 1 chapter out of the So What Next Pitch book, and then we talk about it the next day at practice. And that's why when you get 4-Rip-3, it comes with CDs, so you as a coach can listen to this in your car. And when you get coaching the mental game of softball, this comes with CDs you get to listen to as well in your car. Now we've got some questions coming in. We'll take those in a moment here. I want to continue with talking about our 4-Rip-3 system. So again, I'm going to share my screen, and this time I want you to see our what we call 4-Rip-3 system. All right, so let's walk you through this. The 3 P's of peak performance. Live in the present, focus on the process, and stay positive. What it means to live in the present is to play 1 pitch at a time, to go through the season 1 day at a time. What it means to stay positive is that you turn have-tos into want-tos. I mean, how many times do you have softball players that come in and think, oh, I have to practice today? We want to turn have-tos into want-tos. That's what it means to be positive. We want to focus on what we want, not what we're trying to avoid. That's what it means to be positive. And then we want to focus on the process. The process are the steps we have to take to get to where we want to go. The process is controlling what you can control. So let's review the 3 P's. Present moment focus, 1 pitch at a time, 1 day at a time. Positive, focus on what you want, not what you're trying to avoid. Turn have to into want to. And process, 1 step at a time, controlling what you can control. Now let me share a story with you about the process, something fascinating that happened to me. Now, I'm working this past fall with Midland Lee High School in Texas. They're playing Permian in a scene right out of the movie Friday Night Lights. So I'm down there, I'm at Friday, I'm getting ready to go and work with the high school football team, and we come to a staircase. And we're going to the pep rally before the game, and I go up the staircase. I'm all fired up. I go 2-3 steps at a time as a man on a mission, walking 25% faster than most people think is normal because I got somewhere I got to be. And in the book, The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David Schwartz, he talks about how people who are focused and on a mission walk 25% faster than most other people. So ask yourself, how quickly are you walking? How quickly do your players walk? And do you address those finer details? Now, we come to this staircase. I go 2-3 steps at a time. One of the players goes, whoa, whoa, coach, slow down, man. You can't go more than 1 step at a time. It's game day. I said, oh, is that kind of a routine you guys have here? Is that a tradition? You can't go more than 1 step at a time up the staircase at Midland on game day? And he says, no. Cain, you're not here always talking about the process and going 1 step at a time? In our program, anytime we come to a staircase, we only go 1 step at a time. We never step more than 1 step at a time because you cannot skip a step in the process and expect to end up at the top of the staircase. You have to go 1 step at a time, and you have to hit every step. So, Coach, here's a great take-home. We talked about callbacks, 30-second drill. Here's another one. When you come to a staircase, or when your players come to a staircase, emphasize the importance of going 1 step at a time and hitting every step just to remind themselves of the importance of the process and doing 1 step at a time. Now let me share my screen and go back, and we'll continue talking about 4-Rip-3. I see we have some questions coming through here, which is fantastic. So continue to please send those questions. God, great questions coming in. I love it. Questions from Joseph Santiago, Megan Cormier, and Scott Johnson and Kyle. Fantastic for those coming in. We'll address those questions. I want to continue with our 4-Rip-3 system. So we know the 3 P's of peak performance: present, process, positive. The next part of our 4-Rip-3 system are the R's. You have to have routines to be consistent. And the image for a routine is that of an hourglass. You funnel in, you play that pitch, you funnel out. And then we have to recognize our signal lights. We recognize where we're at. If we're in green, that means go. If we're in red, we have to stop. This comes right out of Ken Reviza's book, Heads Up Baseball. So we have to recognize our signal lights. And if we're in red or yellow, we release. We release by flushing it or release that mental brick. And here's the key take home for you as a softball player or coach. You must have something physical that you do to release the mental. And once you release, then you refocus on the next pitch. So your R's, routines to be consistent. We're talking pre-practice routines, in-practice routines, most importantly in softball, the pre-pitch routine. Inside of that routine, you recognize where you're at. Green means go. If you got green lights, you're confident, you're focused, you're present, you just refocus on the next pitch. See how the arrow goes from recognize to refocus is green. Although if you got red lights or yellow lights, some self-doubt, you're working too fast, or you just don't feel energized or engaged enough, maybe you're too slow, then you got to release before you refocus. And when we talk about recognizing, this is probably the hardest part of the mental game for people to grasp or to actually implement. Because the hardest part about the mental game is awareness. Remember where we talked about Harvey Dorfman's 3 steps to performance improvement, and step number 1 was to have awareness. So we want to increase awareness by asking our athletes this question. It's a 3-part question. What do you feel physically? What do you say to yourself mentally? In what situations in the game give you green lights, give you yellow lights where you just start to lose it, or give you red lights where you're totally out of control? And by asking those 3 questions, what you do is you increase your athlete's awareness of what they're doing in the mental game when they're playing their best. Now, again, in my 4-Rip-3 softball book, it goes through all of those principles on CDs and talks you through the exact program about how to do that. I know we've only got about 5 minutes left on this call. Then we're going to get into questions at 12:30 Mountain Standard Time, 2:30 Eastern Time. We'll go into your questions. So 5 more minutes talking about 4-Rip-3. Now, the I of 4-Rip-3 is mental imagery. And mental imagery has 4 steps to mental imagery. So here are the 4 steps to mental imagery. Number 1, relaxation. And relaxation is a skill, and most of the athletes that I work with, they think that they're either born with the ability to relax or it's something that they just kind of find. They think it's like a personality trait. And it's not. Relaxation is a skill that has to be developed. And you relax first by breathing. So number 1 step to mental imagery is relaxation. Number 2 is what we call confidence conditioning. And confidence conditioning is where you walk them through, they might call it positive affirmation training. So confidence conditioning would be having them say to themselves, I'm a one-pitch warrior who plays the game 1 pitch at a time. I love the adversity and the challenge that is the game of softball. And they repeat those things to themselves, so you're hardwiring and training the way that they think. The 3rd step to mental imagery is what we call mental recall, where they go back in time to a softball game or practice or where they're playing their absolute best. And they revisit and replay that performance in their mind so that they are again revisiting those emotions, those feelings, those thoughts, those sights, those sounds, those smells of what it was like when they were playing their best. And then we go to step 4, which is mental recall, where they recall, step 4 is mental rehearsal, where they rehearse what it is they want to see and how they want to play in their next performance. So let's review the 4 steps. Relaxation, confidence conditioning, mental recall, where they go back, and mental rehearsal, where they're going to go forward. Now again, there's different types of mental imagery. There's what we call passive mental imagery, where they lay down on the ground and they relax and close their eyes and breathe. And we have active imagery, which is what you use on the field. So let's say as a pitcher, active imagery is I'm in the circle, I get my sign, I see the pitch I get the sign I want to throw, I see it, and then I go and throw the pitch, and I try to visualize the pitch I'm throwing before I throw it. That's part of our routine. Or as a hitter, when I'm on, we go from the home plate. Before that, we're on deck. Before that, we're in the hole. Before that, we're in what we call the mental hole. And in the mental hole, 4 people away, you're in the dugout watching the pitcher. And as you see the pitcher, you're closing your eyes. If she throws that pitch, you close your eyes and you visualize yourself hammering a ball on the gap off of that pitcher. So mental imagery is something that we use in practice. It's something that we use in game, and it's something we use the night before to prepare. And again, in the 4-Rip-3 softball system that you get, it comes with 3 CDs. And on that CD, there is an in-depth mental imagery audio that you can play for your team before the game on a bus if you're taking a bus, or you can take that audio and send it to them. If you get this program, I will send you the MP3 of the softball imagery, and then you can send that to your team so they all have it on their iPhones. They can listen to it the night before the game when they're going to sleep. That will get them thinking about playing their best softball. And why is mental imagery important? Mental imagery is important and effective because the brain does not tell the difference between what you vividly imagine and what you physically experience. It's processed the same way. You have what's called a physiological response. The body responds physiologically to the psychological stimulus. Why is it that you sometimes wake up from a dream and think that you're, if you're a softball coach or player, you've probably had that dream where you hit the ball on the wall and your feet are like stuck in cement and you can't run to first base, or you have that dream where you wake up and you're in the hallway in school and you have nothing but your underwear on and everyone's looking at you and laughing, and you wake up and you look at yourself and you go, wait a minute, I'm in bed. But your body responds that same way because the brain doesn't tell the difference between what you physically do and what you vividly imagine. It goes to work on processing that with what they call psychoneuromuscular pathways. In English, what that is the impulse from the brain to the body to create the blueprint for peak performance. So let's review what we've talked about, and then we'll take your questions. 3 steps to performance improvement: awareness, strategy, action. How do you increase awareness? Ask yourself, where am I at on a scale of 1 to 10? Whatever number you give yourself. How do you close the gap from where you are to where you want to be? You come up with strategies. How do you get strategies? Ask yourself, what's one thing I have to start, one thing I have to stop, one thing I have to continue to get to where I want to be? And then you got to go put it into action. We talked about the 4 stages of buy-in. Not for me, okay for others, I'll try it, can't believe I did it any other way. Now, if you're a coach watching this, I will guarantee you 100% return on your investment. That if you pick up the 4-Rip-3 softball program, this book and CDs for yourself and a copy of the book for every player, and you use it this year, you also pick up my Coaching the Mental Game book, CDs and DVDs, and the Daily Dominator book that you read every day, and a copy of So What Next Pitch, where you're giving this to you at my cost. It's basically free. Giving this at my cost. If you use this system with your team and you do not see a dramatic improvement in their mental toughness and in your process and your enjoyment in working and coaching the game of softball, I'm going to give you a refund 100%. I know this system works. It's why I work with the top college softball programs in the country, because it works. If it didn't work, they wouldn't hire me. And now I want to give it the same system to you. So if you go to the briancain.com/softball-webinar page, here's what you want to get. You want to get 25 copies of So What Next Pitch, $10 each, no shipping. You're basically getting it at my cost for free. You want to get 1 copy of the Daily Dominator for yourself. You get it today at like 40% off, 33% off. You want to get the Coaching the Mental Game of Softball program. Comes with 2 DVDs and 2 CDs. 2 CDs for you to have in your car on net time. No extra time. Great coaches have CDs in their car. Bad coaches have satellite sports talk radio. Not bad coaches, but coaches who don't live up to their dreams. Great coaches have an amazing library. Coaches who fall short have a big TV. Ask yourself, how good do you want to be? Do you want a library that you can use to make yourself the best you possibly can be and change your life and the life of the people who you're coaching? Or do you want a big TV so you can relax and watch TV? Maybe you want both. But let's dominate net time by getting those 2 CDs to listen to in your car and the 2 DVDs to watch the seminar 4 hours. Delivered at the NFCA National Convention. And then here's the game changer, the 4-Rip-3 program. Just came out this month. So every player is going to get a copy of the book. 10 chapters talking about the 4-Rip-3 program. You go a chapter a day or a chapter every other day. And what you do is you play the audio for your team before practice, after practice. And when they come in, they have a copy of the book, and in the book, you're going to see there are sections of pages where they have to actually interact as you play the book. I'm a former high school teacher, college adjunct professor. What that means is I taught college without a PhD, adjunct professor of sports psychology. And if you go through this book and you play the audio, they fill this out as you listen to the audio. And then you talk about how to relate this to your program. It's a no-brainer. So you want to get a copy of this book for everyone on your program and the audios that go with it. And if you get those programs, this package right here, and you are not 100% jacked up, pumped out of your mind, I'm going to refund you 100%. That's my commitment to you, because with Brian Cain Peak Performance, we are about discipline, daily habits, and actions, so you do a little, a lot. We're about selfless commitment to you and the people who are committed to excellence and want to be their best and change lives. We're about being relentless with how we support people, being progressive and always trying to get better. That's how we've gone down to a daily to-do, and always trying to be committed to excellence. So let's take a look at some of your questions here. Now, first question that we're going to take comes from Joseph Santiago. And it says, Brian, what are some of your tools I could use to train my middle school kids? Well, Joseph, there's the number one tool you could use, which is free, which comes on this, is the concentration grid, which is you can download on that page. You can use that with them. The other thing you can use is use the audios. If middle school kids, are they going to read? They will, because they'll do anything you ask them to do, everything you train them to do, but they'll definitely listen to the audios. So if they're listening to the audios and taking notes, now you have something to talk about. And then the Daily Dominator gives you your daily message. It's like a daily story about excellence in softball that you can share with your team. Other tools you can use would be just getting them to breathe and getting them to do mental imagery. And you know how it is if you have children, if you watch a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old play in the sandbox, I mean, they got the whole world there in the sandbox. They're going through mental imagery on their own without even knowing they're doing it. So often the younger the athlete, in middle school is about probably the best age, mental imagery has a huge impact on their self-image and on how they see themselves as a softball player. So mental imagery, concentration grids, and the audios would be clutch for middle school. Great question, Joseph. Thank you. Let's take a look at the next question here. It says, what are some things, this is coming in from Kyle Bombardier. What are some things that athletes can do to quickly regain their composure after something bad happens? Great question. The best thing that they can do, and this goes back to our 4 R's, is inside of their routine, after something negative happens, is A, recognize it. Recognize that they're in a red light or yellow light, and then release. They must have something physical they do to release. So a release can be undoing their batting gloves. A release can be knocking dirt off their spikes, doing a arm circle with a bat, or even fixing their helmet. But the release must have 2 things, Kyle. Number 1, it must have a deep breath, and number 2, it must have a physical release that they use. Because you must have a physical release to help release the mental. And let me see if I can do this here. Let's try something. I'm going to share my screen. Actually, let's see here. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually open up a video that shows a release. Now, all right, so I'm going to share my screen with you and show a video. Let's see what we got. All right. So now here's a video. You're going to see Melissa Gregson. She was the Conference Player of the Year, Kyle, at the University of Houston in 2011. So you're going to see her work her routine. She steps out of the box. She'll get her sign, and then you're going to see her look at a focal point on her bat, and she's going to take a deep breath right there, and that's the routine. And then she gets in the box with her final thought, and she's ready to go. Now on this pitch, you're going to see her swing and miss. Then you're going to see a release. So there's some adversity, the swing and miss of her pitch in a close game. She steps out of the box. You're going to see her get the sign. Now she'll reach down and wipe the dirt. That's her release. Missed my pitch. Now watch the pitcher here from Oklahoma State. You're going to see her take a deep breath as well. So pitchers and hitters, every pitch right there. Every pitch, they want to be taking a deep breath to get themselves back to the present moment. Great question. Thanks, Kyle. So to get summarized, how do they quickly regain composure after something bad? Deep breath, release, refocus. Great. Keep coming with those questions. I appreciate you guys asking. Here's another question here. It says, are there any plans to start doing a coaching certification? Joseph, great question. My friends have been on me, and guys like you have been on me for a long time now to do a coaching certification. Yes, it's in the works. It's a start that stops most people. We've got it started. I just am on the road basically now until the end of the College World Series in the end of June. So part of my mission for July, August is to really outline that certification. And Joseph, if you're looking to get certified and becoming a master of the mental game of softball, the best program for you to get going through right now, again, is going to be our 4RIP3 and our Coaching the Mental Game of Softball. And if you go through these two programs, you're going to have a huge competitive advantage, and you're going to be well under your way to becoming the master of the mental game of softball, able to go out there and dominate the day. And the other thing I'm looking to do is grow a team. So for any of our callers that are on this call right now, if you are passionate about the mental game, passionate about teaching, I'm looking to grow a team of masters of the mental game and certified speakers that can go around the country and train others in how to use our system. So that's something that we're going to have available in the future. I've not yet worked out all the details with that, but if you follow me on my Monday message, which you can sign up for at briancain.com/Monday, I will put out information about that certification and about our training programs as it becomes available. Now, you want to get all of your players. There's another thing you can use, is you want to get all of your players, all of your parents to sign up at briancain.com/Monday so that they get the message from me every single week. I've also now tried to go very video-based in that Monday message so that you can share that video with your players and assistant coaches and parents as well. Also, make sure you're following me on Brian Cain. It's on Twitter at Brian Cain Peak and also at Cain Softball. So the softball account is a niched softball account where I'm giving out just softball information, and then the at Brian Cain Peak is going to be more mental toughness, leadership, and a little bit of kind of where I am and what I've got going on. So you definitely want to follow on both of those. I also want to bring your attention to something that's new, and that new is my softball page. So if you don't do this now, I'll show you. But if you go to briancain.com/softball, here's what you're going to see. Let me show you. You're going to see in there blog posts coming out, Twitter feeds specific for softball. Next question comes in from Megan Cormier, or Cormier. And she says, my team has made it to the playoffs in 3 of the last 4 years, but we continue to lose in the first round. What can we do to have better success in the playoffs? Well, Megan, the first thing you want to do when you get in the playoffs is treat it like it's just another day. But in order to treat it like it's just another day, you have to treat practice every day like it's the playoffs. Now, in softball, there's 2 people we compete against. We compete against ourselves, and we compete against the game. Well, what does it mean to compete against yourself and compete against the game? What it means is you have a process of how you beat the game. So what I want to do, Megan, is I want to share with you and the other excellent people on our call exactly how you compete against yourself in the game. And what this is this is the same system used by the top programs in the country where they have categories for success that if they execute those categories, they give themselves the best chance to win. So let me give you, and this again, this is all in our 4RIP3 softball program. Let me share with you now quickly how to do it, how to memorize anything and memorize your categories for success and get your team to do it. So here are how we beat the game. In order to know how you beat the game and memorize it, I want to give you 3 steps to memorize anything. Taught to me by Ron White, the United States Memory Champion. Very cool title. 3 steps to memorize anything. Number 1, have a location. Number 2, create a picture. Number 3, give the picture meaning. Location, picture, meaning. So when I work with college programs, we always have our core values memorized on our right hand. We have our how we beat the game memorized on our left hand. And our right hand skeleton files, this is all in the 4RIP3 programs, how we memorize 4RIP3. So let's go with left hand. Okay? When I do this and make a 0, and please follow me if you're on the call, make a 0. And 0 means no errors. 0 means what? No errors. 1 is score first. What's 1? Score first. 2 is throw the first 2 out of 3 pitches for a strike. First 2 out of 3 pitches for a strike. And we want to try to do that at 66%. At 66%. 3 is hold your opponents to 3 runs or less. Hold your opponents to 3 runs or less. 4 is have 54% and make a Q, quality at-bats. 54% quality at-bats. We know that there's 9 ways to get a quality at-bat. Hit by pitch, walk, sacrifice bunt, sacrifice fly, move a runner from second to third with no outs. Catcher's interference would be a quality at-bat. A 9-pitch at-bat, even ending in a strikeout. So there's many ways to get a quality at-bat. You just have to figure out that for your program. But we're trying to get 54% quality at-bats. 5 is score 5 runs or more. Score 5 runs or more. W is win the freebie war. Freebie war is, do you get more free bases than your opponents? If you get more free bases than your opponents, you usually win. Also, we want to have, if you take your hands and do this, we want to have a big inning. A big inning is if we score 3 runs or more in an inning. If you get a big inning, you're going to win about 80% of the time. If you get 2 big innings, if you get 1 big inning and your opponent doesn't get any, you're going to win about 80% of the time. If you get 2 big innings and your opponent gets just 1 or none, you're going to win about 100% of the time. It's research proven, data proven. So big innings. The other one is answer back. If you make these telephones up here, answer back. What does it mean to answer back? If the other team scores, you come back and score. That's an answer back RBI. And then the last one is a 2-out RBI. Remember Richard Nixon did this? He wasn't talking about, I don't know what he was talking about, but he was talking about his daughter played softball and she wanted 2-out RBIs. So if you can get 2-out RBIs, you're going to win a lot of those games. So let's review here, Megan, about how you want to teach your team to compete in softball. So whether they're playing in practice, inter-squad, or state championship, it's the same game. We're trying to make no errors, score first, throw 2 out of first 3 pitches for a strike, hold our opponents to 3 runs or less, have 54% quality at-bats, score 5 runs or more, win the freebie war, have a big inning, answer back when they score, and get 2-out RBIs. And if we do that, we give ourselves the best chance to win the game. Now, Megan, here's another thing you can do. It's kind of high risk, so be careful. But with risk comes reward. Is take a 4x4 plank and put it down on the ground. Have all your players walk across the plank. As they walk across the plank, they don't even think about it. They just go. Because they're focused on what is, one step at a time. And then when they get into a big game, all games are big games when you never step up. You see, there's never step up. You never step up in softball. The step up happens every single day. But when you take that plank and put it across the top of 2 ladders and then walk across that plank, and it's 6 feet in the air, they start thinking, oh my God, what if I fall? What if the board breaks? They think about what if instead of what is. So you want to have your players walk across the board on the ground and then have someone walk across the board on the top, someone holding the board down, holding the ladders, having spotters there, or just have them sit on top of the ladder and not walk, but with the board there and say, what's different? And Megan, they're going to say, oh my God, I could fall, I could break, I could get hurt. And then what's different is nothing. It's the same board. What's different is their perception of what could go wrong, their perception of what if instead of what is. So you can use both of those. And again, in the 4-Rip-3 softball program and in coaching the mental game of softball, there's a lot more strategies you can use to help combat that big game in the playoff jitters. Other thing I can extend to you, and we have to communicate about how exactly to set all that up, is a lot of times what I do, especially around playoff time, is I set up Skype calls with teams, just like the high school team or college team that you're coaching. And what they do is they get everybody in a classroom at the school. They have a computer with an LCD projector in the ceiling, which all these schools have now, and they Skype in just like we're doing right now. And I actually coach and talk with your team over Skype to get them ready for the big game. I do actually do this with a lot of high schools and colleges around the country too, where I coach them on a weekly or bi-weekly basis for 30 minutes a week, doing a lot. I work with the staff, work with the team over Skype, so we do that as well. I don't have I have very little time to do that this spring. I think I actually have 1 slot open. I just had a coach who changed schools at the break and had to so that nullified our agreement. So I now have 1 spot open. If anyone's interested, you can email me, Brian@briancain.com. Great question, Megan. Let's continue. You guys are doing fantastic. I appreciate your commitment to excellence and wanting to make a difference in the life of the people you coach and being on this call. So thank you for doing that. I know coaching is a thankless profession. We deal with a lot of negativity, not often that many positives, you know. So I want to thank you again for doing this. All right, let's take a look here from Caleb Black. And Caleb says, I've heard a lot of coaches and players talk about the big game. Any advice on how to prepare for this? Caleb, great question. We just addressed a lot of those things. The walking the plank, what if versus what is, one pitch at a time, making sure they have the breath, using the 4-3 system, but also making sure that you know how to beat the game with those categories for success. Great question, Caleb. Also, the big game, I think every day is a big game. And so you want to use the callback with your team. Who do we play against? Ourselves in the game. When's the big game? Every day. When do we step up? Every day. So that there's no difference when they go out there to play. All right, next question comes in. Let's see here. We've got Roger Price. Let's see. Roger says, I want to use the visual signs at the field. Are there any other tools to use to bring the team together as a whole? Well, Roger, when you talk about bringing a team together, I think one of the best things you can do is have a lot. So I have a program called How to Develop Championship Team Chemistry that you can use. It's a part of my inner circle. When you join, you get that program, and it gives you about 30 different team building activities that you can use. So you just take out one we call, Team Building Wednesdays, and every Wednesday we go through a team building activity. Other thing you can do on the field every day is go through the daily dominator, daily read, and again, having a player stand up and talk about that day's message. Another great thing you can do to bring the team together, like you said, are the signs of success. And when you go through signs of success, and, excuse me one second, in my book, The Mental Conditioning Manual, there's at the back of every chapter, like here's a chapter 4 review. And all of those chapter 4 reviews are really signs of success that you can then type up, hang up in the dugout, and have a player talk about to the team what it means to them, what it means to the program. You can also have them on your practice plan, you also put a quote of the week or quote of the day. And you have to talk about that as a way to kind of bring the team together as well. Fantastic question there, Roger. I appreciate you asking. Great question. All right, let's see. Next question coming through comes from Haley Harris. And Haley asks, she says, what is a good process to help kids go from game self to real self after a game or before practice? Great question, Haley. And Haley is the future of the mental game of softball, as we all know here, a true one-pitch warrior and down in Texas who's doing some great things. And Haley, you know that a good process to help people transition from game self to real self, to go from being the student to the athlete or the athlete back to the student, a great way to do that is all about the routine. So one of the key things with routine is just the clothing that they wear. And I'm shocked at how many programs around the country don't have practice gear. Get them a t-shirt and shorts or t-shirt and a pair of pants. Have them look the same. Because it's like Superman going in the phone booth. When Superman goes in the phone booth, he goes in as Clark Kent super nerd. And he comes out as Superman. So when you go into that phone booth and you change your clothes, you're getting rid of your student mentality and you're putting on that one-pitch warrior ready to go to battle. So using your clothes is a way to transition. Other one that we use, and we talk about this in all the programs that you share, is having a peak performance journal where they open it up and they write down their goal pre-practice. When practice is over, they go back to their locker or in their bag in the dugout. They take it out and write down how they did. Awareness. And then at the end of practice, they write down what's my goal for the next practice. So it helps you to connect practices. So Monday's practice. Pre-practice, I write down my goal for the day and what I'm working on. At the end of practice, it takes 1 minute, I take out my journal, my peak performance journal, and I write down what did I learn today, and then what's my goal for tomorrow. I close the book, I put it in my bag, I go home, I do my thing, I go to school the next day, I come back to practice on Tuesday, and I open up my journal. And what's looking at me? My mission at the end of yesterday's practice. I refocus on that mission. I ask myself again, is this what I want to work on to help me get better today? I revisit that mission, I write down a couple other things I may be focusing on, and then I close the book, I go to practice is over, I open my journal, and I write down again how I did that day, what my mission or my goals might be for the next day, close the book, and that helps me to kind of open the book on practice, close the book on practice. Another one is the cell phone. Turning your cell phone off before practice as a coach or an athlete is a great way to say goodbye, external world, hello, softball. When softball's over, turning the phone back on says goodbye, softball, hello, external world. So those are some strategies that you can use. Great question, Haley. Next question comes in from Neil Smith. Neil says, Brian, do you have any speaking events that are open to the public? I saw on your calendar you're coming to North Carolina, South Carolina in the future. I'd love to attend your events. Neil, that's a tremendous question, my friend. And if you can always see where I'm going to be at by going on my calendar, briancain.com/calendar. Now, most of the events that I do are at college campuses where I'm working privately with their teams. So events I'm actually going to be at Cary, North Carolina with the University of Michigan baseball team. And I'm going to be in South Carolina and do a lot of work at Coastal Carolina with their baseball, softball programs and some other teams on campus as well. So if you have any kind of relationship with those coaches, I have no problem. I have no problem with you being at those events. Sometimes those coaches, either because of compliance or NCAA interpretation, they don't want high school coaches there or not allowed to have high school coaches there, and it's not often the coach's decision, it's often the administration decision. Or sometimes we do some pretty intensive work on team, and it's private stuff. But most of the events I go to are private. I'm going to start doing more events open to coaches, open to the public, because I want to do that. I want to get a wider range of connection with people like yourself, Neil, when I'm in that area. And those are really going to be coming out probably in the fall of 2014. So in the meantime, the one event, if you're a softball coach, the one event you want to absolutely take down here, Neil, in preparation is my Coaching the Mental Game of Softball. This is a 4-hour seminar I did at the NFCA National Convention. You want to get that, lock in on that with DVDs, the CDs for net time. Again, no extra time. Listen to that in the car to become a master of the mental game. And you will become that much better, so that when we get together at one of those live events, a live event, you've heard it so many times, you know exactly what we're doing with the mental game, and we're able to take you to that next level more quickly. So again, check out my calendar page, check out that Coaching the Mental Game of Softball program. Great question, Neil. Next question comes in. Let's take a look here at a question from Scott Johnson. And Scott says, do you have any suggestions on how to get players or parents to buy into a dedicated, more of a team member and less of an individual? Seems hard at a small school where volleyball is king and softball is during the same season. Volleyball is king. Scott, are you in California, Nebraska? Let me know where you're at here. I'm interested. Go ahead and, if you would, just send me a question. Let me know what school you're at as I address this. So, Scott, how do you get people to buy in? Great question. It's kind of like a lot of schools now. I get oh, my kids don't want to play. They want to play travel ball. They don't want to play for their high school anymore. Times are changing, and I hear coaches complain about that a lot. Here's my statement to them: is if you want more kids to play in your program, if you want more out of your program, you have to become more. If you want more, you have to become more. You have to provide a better product to get people to be attracted to it. And we talk a lot about how to sell your program and how to make your program a program of excellence in the 4-3 program and in the Coaching the Mental Game of Softball program. The first thing you want to do is you want to create core values, a championship culture. Nick Saban, the football coach in Alabama, if you haven't seen this, you got to get the video. It's on 60 Minutes. It's on YouTube. Type in Nick Saban 60 Minutes. And less than 2 minutes in, you see him at practice getting after some guys. And then they interview him and they say, Coach Saban, you're really hard on your players. And he goes, that's not a fair statement. Because I'm not hard on our players. Because I'm hard on making sure our standard of excellence is upheld. He goes, culture creates chemistry. You can't have team chemistry without a championship culture. High achievers don't like being around people that are mediocre, and people who are mediocre don't like being around high achievers. And we've created a culture of high achievers. And at Alabama, their football culture is about effort, commitment, toughness, discipline, and pride. Here's your question, Scott. Here's your take-home. Give every player in your program an index card, every staff, every player. Ask them to give you the 3 to 5 words, character traits, effort, commitment, toughness, discipline, pride, excellence, process, whatever your values are. Ask them to write down 3 to 5 values of your program. See if everyone writes the same thing. If they don't, that's where you start. You start by giving them something to buy into. Give you the Arizona State baseball example. One of the top college baseball programs in the country. Go in there this fall. I spent all summer in 2013 with the Team USA Collegiate Baseball National Team. One of our assistant coaches was Tim Esme. He's the head baseball coach at Arizona State, one of the greatest coaches in college baseball. As we were talking, I said, Ez, tell me about being a Sun Devil, man. That's one of the greatest programs in the country. What does it mean? And we started talking, and I said, if we gave an index card to every one of your staff and players and alumni, would they be able to tell you what it means to be a Sun Devil man? Would they be able to tell you the values of your program? And we started talking, and then I went to campus in August, and I gave every player and staff an index card and had them write down 3 to 5 words that described what it meant to be a Sun Devil. And ideally, what are you going to get? 3 to 5 words, the same words from everybody. We had over 100 words. Remember, there cannot be any chemistry without culture. So how do you establish culture, and how do you establish buy-in? You got to give them something to buy into. So we went through a process this fall. And Coach Esme and the Sun Devils came up with what it means to be a Sun Devil man. And here's the acronym. S-U-N, right, devil. Selfless, humble, confident, disciplined, excellence, pursue victory, be a member of a family, and be relentless. So they use the S for selfless, the U for humble, the N in confidence, D for discipline, E for excellence, V for victory, I for family, and the L for relentless to make Sun Devil. So when you talk about being a Sun Devil man, what does that mean? It's a man who is selfless, who is humble and knows he can get beat by anyone in the country, so he must prepare and have confidence and also know that he can beat anyone in the country. Must be disciplined with his daily habits and actions, committed to excellence, because excellence is a lifestyle, it's not an event. It must be a person who pursues victory and winning at all time. Also, must be a strong, positive member of our family and be relentless, always attacking and moving towards your target. So the 5 steps of championship culture creation, Scott. Number 1, identify who you are. Number 2, define it. Number 3, describe what it looks like. Number 4, self-assessment. Number 5, personal development plan. And again, all of that is covered in our 4RIP3 system in the mental conditioning manual. It's going to walk you through how to exactly do all that. That's a whole nother webinar that we should do and we will do. Great question, Scott. All right, we're 1 hour in here, taking our last couple questions. Roger says, thank you. No, thank you, Roger, for being excellent and getting on our call here, man. I appreciate you and everyone else who's on the call. Scott, where's he from? That's right, he's from Nebraska, where volleyball is king. Fantastic. And our last question from Megan Cormier. She says, I saw that your book, Toilets, Bricks, Fishhooks, and Pride, on ESPN last year during the World Series. What are some things you learned while working with Alabama? Great question, Megan. You know, that's right. When I worked with Alabama in 2010, 11, and 12, they won the SEC championship all 3 years, national championship in 2012, and during the World Series, Holly Rowe from ESPN held up a copy of Toilets, Bricks, Fishhooks, and Pride. Let me get that book real quick. She held up a copy of this book right here, which you can actually get right now on my website. You can get, we're doing a little New Year's promo. You can get Toilets, Bricks, Fishhooks, and Pride, and So What Next Pitch. I think it's $15 on our website. You can get both of these. #1 bestseller. Now, what did I learn from working with Alabama? Learned that the best team never wins. It's the team who plays the best. 2012, I think Oklahoma was better than Alabama. I think most people would agree with that. Alabama played better. I think Alabama was more mentally tough. In that national championship game where it was raining and it was poor conditions, Alabama got fascinated with playing well in good conditions. I think Oklahoma got frustrated. And I was fascinated that they didn't pull the tarp. I've never seen an umpire stop a game when they have a legit field crew, they don't pull the tarp on a field. It was blown away. Blown away that didn't happen. So I think I also learned, you know, with Alabama, Patrick Murphy, their head coach, a master of the mental game, one of the greatest coaches, not only in college softball, but any sport in the country. And I think Patrick Murphy really has created a model that many coaches should follow. I mean, what he does from a character, leadership, community service, sportsmanship, life development standpoint in Alabama is probably as good as any college coach in any sport in the country. So I think from learning with Alabama, I saw how coaching the entire athlete as a person, creating a culture of excellence, leads to a tremendous on-field product. You know, at the time, their staff of Allie Habitz, Patrick Murphy, Vance Dudeman, who's now the head coach at Mississippi State, Stephanie Van Brakel, who's now the pitching coach there, all just tremendous at what they do. Some of the greatest coaches in the country. And I think while working with them, I learned that it's about the process. And I also learned that, they had some of the greatest talent in the country, but have only won the national championship once. So I also know that talent alone doesn't win. At the highest level, when you're talking about SEC college softball, Pac-12, Big 12, ACC, some of the greatest conferences out there, Hutch at Michigan with the Big 10, talent doesn't get it done at the highest level. It's about consistency, and consistency starts with the 6 inches between the ears. And to help you train your consistency, pick up our 4-Rip-3 softball program, our Coaching the Mental Game program, and actually in this book, So What Next Pitch, there's an interview with Coach Patrick Murphy where he talks about consistency, talks about establishing a championship culture that I know that can help you as well. So, Megan, thank you so much for your question. I appreciate you. And thank you to all of you for jumping on this call. Again, to recap, please sign up for my Monday message so that we can stay in touch. I value you investing an hour of your life, and I want to be able to help you as much as I can throughout your career. So if you go to briancain.com/Monday, you can sign up for my weekly message there that I send to all the coaches and athletes I work with personally, and also get your team to sign up for that. You can pick up copies, 25 copies of So What Next Pitch at only $10 a piece. Free shipping to use with your team, 1 chapter a day or a chapter a week. You can pick up the Daily Dominator, your once-a-day read. You can see there's a page for every day. Use that with your team. So What, our Toilets, Bricks, Fishhooks, and Pride, the book that Holly Rowe held up with the University of Alabama when they were competing for the national championship. You can pick this book up as well on the website. Trying to find a picture of it. Can't find it. And you can also pick up our programs, the Coaching the Mental Game of Softball, 4 hours, 2 DVDs to watch the seminar, 2 CDs to listen to it on net time in your car, no extra time. The 4-Rip-3 program, 3 CDs with a book that's actually a workbook that your players can use where they go through as you play the audios and they fill out the review sheets as they go through it. You can pick up the mental conditioning manual, and there's a ton of great packages. The package I'd recommend you get is our Oklahoma City package, where you can get all of this at the best discount I've ever offered. And that's at briancain.com/softball-webinar. And that Oklahoma City package is only available till midnight tonight. And I'm taking it down. So only you, the viewers of this 4-Rip-3 softball call, those coaches committed to excellence and being at your best when it means the most, can take advantage of that program, take advantage of the Oklahoma City offer. And when you do, you will absolutely, positively dominate the day, take your program to the next level, and be a true master of the mental game. It's Brian Cain, your peak performance and mental conditioning coach. Thank you for joining me today, and make sure that you absolutely live life to the fullest. Be talking to you soon.